All right. Welcome, everyone, to Redefining Resilience, Thriving with a Different Brain. We have the good fortune of having Caterina Turner with us again today, who has rich experience working with folks that have experienced a TBI, doing case management and support for folks in that group, and also with veterans and first responders, and just has a long history of being in the helping profession, I should say. So, Caterina, please feel free to expand on that. And thank you for being here today. I'm grateful to host you and to learn along with everyone here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reggie, for that introduction. I feel like you covered all of the bases wonderfully. I do come from a case management background, primarily in brain injury services and support, so I am thrilled to be here with you guys today. Today, we're going to be talking about a word in and of itself and kind of what falls underneath that umbrella. And I'm sure it is a word that you've heard 1,000 times, a word that perhaps has been thrown around from every direction, from well-meaning friends, and sometimes even from our own inner critic. And that word is resilience. So you're probably thinking, well, Caterina, how would that be my inner critic? Resilience is supposed to be great. And for many, that word may feel heavy. It can feel like a standard that you're not meeting, more so a command to be stronger or tougher or faster, or even a pressure to get over it or to move on or bounce back. And bounce back is something that you're going to hear quite often in this class, because that is something that I heard from the individuals that I served was, why is John not bouncing back? Or I can't wait to bounce back, get back to my old self. So I would like to kind of prompt you with a question of what if our understanding of that word has been wrong? What if the very definition that we've been chasing is the source of exhaustion? And if resilience isn't about bouncing back at all, but what if it's something quieter and softer and more powerful? So today we're going to redefine it. We're going to explore what it means to thrive, not in spite of having a brain injury or a different body or a different story, but because of it. So before we dive into our class, I would just like to invite you all to simply arrive. Part of you may be curious and hopeful, and another part bracing for pressure to perform, to be a good audience member, or to take notes, or to have a profound insight, or to somehow leave here fixed or with this nuanced perception to take away. And I want you to know from the bottom of my heart that there is no performance required here, and this space welcomes you for curiosity and not performance. So take a deep breath with me. Goodness knows, I also need a breath. So let's take a breath. Okay, so let go of any pressure to bounce back or to meet this invisible expectation. There is no timeline that you have to meet here. There's no test to pass, and there is no version of yourself that you're supposed to become by the time that we're finished. Your journey is your own, of course, unfolding at its own pace. So simply by being here with me, exactly in this moment, whether you're tired or frustrated from the day, or if you're bringing skepticism, or maybe you're just showing up just because you feel like it's a part of checking off that list, your simple presence is the most powerful act of resilience, and I am so grateful that you're here. So for so long, we were handed this specific story about resilience that I kind of touched on earlier, almost as if it's a story of armor. We were taught that resilience means toughness or gritting your teeth and pushing through the pain. It meant that when you were struggling, the brave thing to do was perhaps to hide it or to keep appearances that everything was okay, to make sure that no one saw through the cracks. And this is an old understanding. This heavy suit of armor has 3 main rules. Rule 1, suppress your needs. If you're tired, have more coffee. If you're overwhelmed, focus harder. And Your needs are an inconvenience to the goal. Mind you, these are false as I'm reading these off. So these are not the current rules. Rule 2, ignore your limits. If your body is screaming for rest, that's just weakness talking, girlfriend. You can push past it. If your mind is foggy and slow, you can absolutely force it to be sharp. And rule 3, which is the most painful one of all, is to force normalcy. Pretend everything is fine and act like you were the person that you were before. Fit back into that old box, even if the edges are cutting you. You wore that armor because you thought that it kept you safe, but all it did was make you heavy and feel disconnected from your body, from your own truth, and also from the people who want to help. And at times, having this definition of resilience can also cost you your well-being. So the new truth that I'd like you to take away is that real resilience is not rigidity. It's not armor. It's flexible. It's like the grace of a willow tree and not the stubbornness of oak. Um, I sound like a tree aficionado, but I am not. So it's thoughtful pacing. It's not a relentless sprint. It's, learning to trust your body and your body's signals instead of overriding them. And it means honoring your boundaries, not as a sign of weakness, but leaning into wisdom. And it means authentic adaptation. So finding new ways to be in a world that work for the person that you are today. When your nervous system finally feels safe and supported, you're giving yourself that permission to stop fighting. And then your body begins its natural, brilliant repair process. And safety is absolutely the foundation of all healing. So today, give yourself permission to take off that armor. The body can certainly start to feel like the enemy. It feels like the source of pain, perhaps limitation and frustration. But what if the body isn't the problem, but the compass, rather? So everything your body does is communication, it's information. Your body is profoundly intuitive and beautifully made, and its primary job every second of every day is to keep you safe and connected. So when you're feeling that flutter in your chest before a conversation, it doesn't have to be a difficult conversation. It could be you're outside waving to a neighbor and you get a flutter because maybe you don't have a conversation often. That's information. The sudden wave of exhaustion that hits you around 3 o'clock, I know it hit me today. I'm over here on the Eastern Standard Time. That's also information. That ache in your shoulders that you've had all day long is information for you to take in. So when your words fail and you're unable to articulate them, the body speaks. And it's very important that you really try to listen. So right now, even if just for a second, I invite you to notice it. Without changing a thing, can you feel your heartbeat? Can you feel its steady rhythm working for you? Can you feel the gentle rise and fall of your own breath? Can you feel the points of contact between your body and the chair and the ground beneath your feet? Your heart rate variability and the tiny fluctuations between beats reflects your nervous system flexibility. Your breathing patterns are directly influencing your emotional state. Your posture is even sending patterns of signals of either, you're in safety or danger straight to your brain. So that is why grounding and rest are not luxury items off of some, nice restaurant menu. They're not optional add-ons. I want you to think about them like neural nourishment. And they are essential for your nervous system that is learning slowly and patiently how to feel safe again. So how do we listen? How do we start that conversation? Life is busy. I know I don't have time to really sit down and practice these grounding exercises. And, it's all well and great when I'm talking about it, but, it begins with the simplest tool that we have, and that is our breath. You can do a very simple breathing exercise, breathing for a count of 4, holding for a count of 4, And then the most important part is exhaling slowly for a count of 6. Deep breathing creates a direct biological conversation with that nervous system. So every intentional breath, especially that long, slow exhale, sends that powerful message from your lungs up your vagus nerve directly to your brainstem. And that message is you are safe right now. So when your brain does receive that message, it kind of flips that switch and it activates what's called the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your body's natural rest and digest system. This is the healing system. It slows and lowers your heart rate. It reduces inflammation. So creating these small moments of safety is the foundation for neuroplasticity. And in all my trainings, I will always reference neuroplasticity. And I'm going to reference it again here in another slide. So I apologize for redundancy, but it is so very important. Neuroplasticity is like your brain's magical ability to rewire itself, to form new pathways, to learn and adapt after injury. But it can't really do that when you're under such stress and the alarm bells are ringing. It can, but it's not going to be in a very proactive way. Your brain needs that safety to change, and you hold the key to creating that safety. So even if it's just 2 minutes of intentional breathing, you can really begin to shift your brain chemistry and activate your body's deepest healing responses. It's simple, it's free, and it's yours, and you can do it at any time. So now let's talk about the biggest and most painful myth of all that I had mentioned earlier, the myth of bouncing back. We see it everywhere, bouncing back from adversity, bouncing back to your old self. It sounds so appealing and so in reach when we say it like, oh, well, I'll just bounce back. But for anyone who has been through a life-altering experience, striving to get back to normal can feel like a painful, elusive, maybe even a constant failure. Think of it like, you're chasing a ghost, the ghost of who you used to be, and you remember how you used to have more energy, or perhaps you used to think more clearly, how you used to navigate the world, how you used to interact with other individuals. And you spend all your precious energy just trying to get back to that person. And every day that you're not them, it feels like you failed. So again, I want you to free yourself from this burden of feeling the need to bounce back. The truth is, you don't have to return to an old version of yourself to live a full, beautiful, meaningful life. Healing happens when you build forward and not backwards. And it makes me think when I went to go visit my sister in Japan. And of course, she took me hiking because we love to hike, and she's definitely more fit than I am. So of course, naturally, she took me to this beautiful river gorge, and it was straight up incline and all of these stairs. And then once we got to the top, there were these beautiful pottery shops, and in these pottery shops, they were selling Japanese, bowls and of course pottery. But we came across this one, and it was called kintsugi. I hope that I'm saying that right. I hope that's that's proper. But it's when a precious piece of pottery breaks, the artisans, they don't try to glue it back together so it looks like it was never broken. They don't try to hide the cracks. Instead, they mend it with beautiful pieces of powdered gold, and it is so lovely. The cracks are not just repaired, they're illuminated. The bowl becomes more beautiful and more unique and stronger because it was broken. So the story of its breaking and mending is now a part of the beauty. So you're not meant to be restored back to your factory settings. You're meant to be illuminated. Your path is not a circle that takes you back to where you started. It's a spiral. In your head, you may be saying, yeah, Caterina, it's a spiral down, or, whatever you're feeling today, but it's a spiral moving forward into new unknown territory. And that is where growth lives. So you're constantly going to be creating this new version of yourself, mended, living fully in this moment. Okay, Caterina, that's all great in theory. How do we build forward? How do I find that gold? We do it by partnering with the most incredible innovation system in the known universe, which is your brain. And again, like I referenced earlier, I'm going to be touching base on neuroplasticity all day long. We often think of the brain as this fixed object, something that can be damaged but not changed. But of course, the last few decades of neuroscience have shown that that's wrong. Your brain's constantly changing thanks to neuroplasticity. I want you to think about it kind of like as your city urban planner. Say you just had an earthquake, some main highways are damaged and some of the old routes are blocked. A bad city planner would just say, just keep on sending that traffic down the road. But your brain is a brilliant planner. So it looks at new landscape and says, okay, this is what we have to work with now. Let's try to innovate. It starts building new pathways. It turns a small side street into a major road, and it builds clever bridges to work around collapsed tunnels. So after an injury or significant change, your brain just doesn't sit there and wait for all the roads to be repaired. It gets to work, actively rewiring itself, finding those new solutions, and building a new city map. So every time that you find a new way to remember something or a new way to pace yourself, coming to these courses and, Reggie will give you like a great takeaway for a wonderful breathing exercise. That is creating a new neural pathway. Your brain is constantly learning, it's constantly adapting and growing, and it is designed for continuous growth. So your role is to create these conditions for that brilliant city planner to do their best work. So let's think about what the city planner needs. The first and perhaps most important is a sense of order and predictability. The brain cannot build new roads in the middle of a constant hurricane. It needs safety. And in our daily lives, the most powerful tool that we do have for creating safety is creating boundaries. And I don't know about you, but I know sometimes when I hear the word boundary, it sounds almost like it's a confrontation, like it's like conflict. So it sounds like, building a giant wall around yourself, or perhaps if you're saying it to a loved one, well, I need to maintain my boundaries. It sounds like maybe you're not being agreeable or you're being difficult. But that's a misunderstanding. Boundaries are not about confrontation. They're about communication. They're like a clear way of telling the world and yourself what you need to feel safe and what you need to function well. They regulate your energy and your sensory load, creating the predictability that your nervous system craves. So don't think about boundaries as walls, but as doors. You need to decide when they are open, when they are closed, and who you invite in. They empower you to choose for yourself, what kind of individuals you allow in your life, and they empower you for what enters your world. So there are three different kinds of boundaries here. The first is energetic boundaries. And this is about protecting your capacity from overwhelming input. A boundary isn't a slam door, it's gentle. So you could say something like, my capacity for noise is really low today, so I'm going to sit this loud party out. Or I need to take a break from this intense conversation for about 20 minutes so you can protect that energy. The second is time boundaries. Your time is a precious resource. So a boundary might be, I can't really focus on this task from, 10 to 11. I might be able to focus on it for 15 minutes, but then I'll need a quiet break to recharge. So you clearly state your availability, which then preserves resources for rest and integration. And then third is relational. So this is also about honoring your emotional safety and choosing when and how deeply to engage. So it might be, I don't really have the emotional energy to talk about that difficult topic right now, but can we revisit another time? I'm getting tongue-tied. I talk so fast, so I apologize. Or simply choosing to spend more time with the people who leave you feeling seen and respected, and less with those who leave you feeling drained Or in some cases, you may feel as though you need to be performative, which is what we touched base on earlier. So really thinking about, what relationships give you energy, and then, what are the relationships that tend to drain you? The second condition our brain needs to do brilliant work is fuel, cognitive energy. And this is where we need to become our own personal financial planners. So I want you to think about your daily energy as currency, or even better, like a smartphone battery. Every morning you wake up with a certain amount of battery. Some days you're charged, some days you're not. For some of us, before your life changed, maybe you woke up with, 100% battery. You were good to go. Maybe you wake up with 60%. The tasks that your brain once did automatically in the background now consume way more battery power. So you can kind of think about it like apps running on your phone. If you're following a fast-paced conversation with multiple people, that used to be a background app that perhaps took about 5% of your battery. Now it's like running a high definition video game and it takes up 40% of your battery in 15 minutes. So being in a noisy, visually busy environment like a grocery store, your brain is working kind of overtime to filter in all of that different input. That's another 30% of your battery, gone in an hour. If you're a task switcher, like multitasking, I know I try it and it does not work for my brain. Trying to answer those emails while listening to a podcast or thinking about your to-do list. That's like having 20 apps open all at once, and it will drain your battery and crash your system before you can even realize it. So these are all high-cost activities. But then on the other hand, you have low-cost activities that preserve your energy. So working one single thing at a time, being in a quiet, predictable environment, using visual cues like a written list so your brain doesn't have to hold all that information in its working memory. Things like putting your phone on power mode or low power mode. Just really think about, your energy deposits. These are the things that actually recharge your battery. So sleep quality, a strategic 20-minute nap. Earlier, I had shut down my laptop from my other position that I have, and I took about 20 minutes and I crashed on my couch and I pet my dog Moose and I, I recharged so I can come to you with all of my energy. Even taking a 5-minute mindfulness break or a few rounds of, deep guided breathing or just being mindful for a minute. These are all going to really fill up your energy deposit and fill up your bank. So really start planning your energy budget as carefully as you would your finances. And it's not about being sustainably productive. Rest prevents the cognitive crashes, and you're able to manage your energy in a way that works best for you. Okay, so we've talked about all of the hard things. We've talked about creating safety with boundaries and managing our fuel with energy economics. Now let's talk about the magic ingredient, the catalyst that kind of accelerates the whole process, and that is joy. So joy, of course, is going to look different for everyone. Something may spark your joy that I could never fathom. My girlfriend, she loves the smell of gasoline. It gives her joy. So, whatever works for you. I'm not talking about forced toxic positivity or pretending that you're happy when you're not. I'm talking about something smaller and quieter and more profound. It's a biological event when you experience joy. Your nervous system is always constantly scanning for, those environmental cues of safety or danger, like we had just spoke about. Excuse me, we just talked about before. Oh, someone else here likes the gas smell too. There's actually a gasoline candle that I saw, so good to know for future reference. Your nervous system is constantly scanning your environment. So our work is to start intentionally noticing the small sensory cues of safety and pleasure. Because these moments are not just nice, they create a cascade of healing chemistry in your brain. So think about taking a walk in the woods. And I love this because I do love to hike. The feeling of the sun on your skin or the warmth of a cup of tea in your hands. Natural light and warmth activate the calming neural pathways and they help you regulate your body's natural rhythms. Texture or touch. I'm very tactile. Think about the feeling of sun on your skin. That's, another tactile experience, but the favorite softness of your blanket or a comfortable pair of pajamas, or like I mentioned, Moose. Moose is a golden doodle and he has the softest fur and just has the most soothing effect on my senses that just kind of grounds me and brings me back down. So whatever that is for you, really think about what sparks your joy in these regards. Another is laughter and play. And I see someone here saying grandchild cuddles the best. And I could not be more on board with all of the snuggles and cuddles. A genuine moment of laughter with the kiddos or family members or friends, even a funny movie or losing yourself in a creative hobby. We were just talking about, watercoloring and how I wish that I was creative. So, finding that hobby that you can really just immerse yourself into. It's not a luxury, it's not a distraction, from hard work or healing. It's evidence that you're kind of re-entering that state of connection of safety. And it signals to your brain, that says it's safe to come out of survival mode. It's safe to repair. It's safe to grow. So your new homework for today is to kind of become the detective for joy, to hunt for those small sensory evidence of goodness in your day. And then micro joys. So this is where it gets really good. At least it gets good for me. You don't need a big vacation or a life-changing event to find chemistry or healing. In my opinion, vacations always need a vacation afterwards because they're too stressful. So I love to think about micro joys. Healing hides in the smallest, most ordinary moments. And those are called micro joys. So each tiny moment of pleasure triggers a specific neurochemical that supports your recovery in a unique way. So let's look at a few that I have here. First, there are dopamine moments. And dopamine is often called the motivation molecule because it's about reward and focus. You don't need a big achievement to get it. The first sip of coffee in the morning and the satisfying warmth that spreads through you, that's a tiny little dopamine hint. And goodness knows I have one every single morning. So crossing a simple single item off your to-do list, I'm a type A lister. Oh, that feels so good just crossing it off and being done with one thing. Listening to your favorite song. For me, I love my 90s music. Just I'll crank it up. These small pleasures are literally building your motivation and your focus from the ground up. And then there's oxytocin, oneness. My brain is fried today. I apologize. Which is the connection hormone. It fosters feelings of trust, bonding, and belonging, which are absolutely essential for healing. A warm, genuine hug from someone you trust, the feeling of your pet purring on your lap, or a conversation with your friend where you feel truly seen or understood. Even making eye contact, which I feel is something that rarely happens now. Just making eye contact with a stranger and smiling. These all release, that chemical telling your nervous system that you're not alone and that you belong. And lastly, there's serotonin stability. So serotonin helps regulate our mood and creates a sense of well-being, and we can support it in very simple ways. So getting a little bit of natural sunlight on your face, like we spoke about earlier, especially in the morning, a gentle walk or some stretching, some yoga, and practicing gratitude for small, tangible things, which we'll talk about in a moment. So I mentioned gratitude, and I just want to pause here because the way we talk about gratitude in our culture can be incredibly harmful. You've probably been told at some point to be grateful or to look on the bright side or to find the silver lining in your struggle. And often this creates a sense of guilt or even shame because you're in pain and being told you should be grateful for it feels like a dismissal of your reality and your experience. So let me be very clear when I say you don't have to be grateful for your injury. You don't have to be grateful for any illness or your pain, and you don't have to convince yourself that everything happens for a reason, which I hate to hear more than anything. That is what I call harmful gratitude. And harmful gratitude dismisses your pain because it sounds like, well, Caterina, at least I survived, And in passing, this sounds like gratitude. It looks like gratitude. While true, this statement often minimizes the grief of what was lost. And it sounds like others have it worse, which again adds that layer of guilt or suffering, or, I should be thankful it wasn't more severe. And again, this invalidates the very real difficulty of what did happen. There is another way, a more gentle, more honest way, is what I call healing gratitude. And healing gratitude it doesn't ask you to ignore the pain, it asks you to notice the good alongside with the pain. It honors your full reality. You can be grateful within your experience. Healing gratitude sounds like, this is really hard, and this moment right now feels peaceful. Or I'm frustrated within my limits, and I'm proud of myself that I rested when I needed to. And you can hear the difference. Harmful gratitude tries to erase the pain, while healing gratitude holds space for both. It allows your pain and your appreciation to coexist without contradiction, because both are certainly real, both are true, and both deserve to be acknowledged. This leads us to the most powerful mindset shifts on the healing path. It's the shift from either or thinking to both and thinking. Our minds love simplicity. They love black and white. We think I must be either healing or struggling. I must either, need help, or I must be strong. I must be grateful or grieving. This either or thinking creates so much internal conflict because our real lived experience is almost always a paradox. Learning to hold seemingly contradictory truths at once is an act of deep self-acceptance. It reduces that internal struggle and that internal war and allows you to be complex and whole and just as you are. So this is the both and principle. You can be grateful and grieving. You can sit in the sun feeling deep appreciation for its warmth while simultaneously mourning the loss of abilities or future you once imagined. Both feelings are valid and they can share the same space in your heart. You can be strong and exhausted. You can be incredibly resilient, showing up in your life with courage, and you can be bone tired and need a whole day to rest. Your strength does not cancel out your exhaustion, and your exhaustion does not cancel out your strength. You could be healing and needing help. You can make incredible progress building new pathways in your brain and still need the use of assistive tools. Moving forward and still hurting. Building a new beautiful life for yourself does not erase the pain of the past. You can create profound meaning and joy while still carrying those scars. Interdependence is not mutually exclusive. So, as you begin moving forward, I want you to really think about, and I'm sure you've heard it a million times regarding your brain injury. I know I've said this so many times, is healing is not linear. It's not a straight line from sick to well or recovery. It's cyclical. It's layered, and there's so much depth to it. It's kind of like this spiral dance, and the both and principle gives you that grace to dance with all of it. So we come back to where we started, resilience. After everything we've explored today, what is it really? We know what resilience is not. It's not bouncing back quickly. It's not pushing through the pain. It's not about rugged individual toughness. It's rhythmic flexibility, honoring your unique pace, and it's rooted in relational support. It's not endurance. It's the art of staying connected to yourself, to your body, to your needs, and the people who truly see you. Safety, rest, and chosen support will deepen your healing more than pressure and forced positivity ever could. So, as we prepare to leave the space together, I want to offer a gentle practice. Not a to-do list. Like I said, there's no pressure here to be performative or to take notes, but just a simple way to sort through what you heard today. I invite you to think about what you want to carry forward. Of all the ideas that we've explored, what felt true in your body? What brought a sense of peace or relief? And what honors your needs? What connects you more deeply to yourself? Just let one or two of those things come to mind and imagine gently placing them in your pocket to take with you. Next, I invite you to think about what you can release gently. Perhaps what old beliefs no longer serve you, or what creates pressure, what belongs to an old story or narrative that you're ready to let go of. The idea that you have to be tough, the pressure to bounce back, the guilt about resting. You don't have to fight them, just it's fall. Let's imagine them as leaves floating away on a gentle stream and just release them gently. And finally, I invite you to float in freedom. This isn't something that you have to achieve. It's a state of being that you can allow, not by forcing, but by surrendering, and not by pushing, but by allowing yourself to be exactly as you are. So as we close, I invite you to do one last thing. Let one expectation that you have of yourself drift away. Maybe it's the expectation to heal faster or the expectation to be who you once were. You can just pick one in this moment and let it go and feel your shoulders lower. Resilience isn't about being who you used to be. It's about how gently and how compassionately you meet who you are now. So recovery is not return to old you, it's rebirth, and rebirth into someone who has learned to live with profound wisdom, appreciation for life, deep compassion, and authentic courage. Courage that you may have even known that you possessed. So I thank you all for your presence here today, and I'm ready to kick it over to you with any questions that you may have.
This is lovely. Let me turn off the recording and I invite people to come in and share. Bear with me for just a moment.
So Reggie, I can unmute myself without getting in trouble.
Yes, you can. Let me just turn off the recording, my friend.